In this gripping story, a man uncovers shocking secrets about his wife and mother, revealing hidden betrayal and deceit. As tensions rise, the truth is finally exposed, but an unexpected twist leaves the audience on the edge of their seats. The journey of healing and rebuilding trust begins, leaving you wanting more. Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So, let's begin. It all started with a feeling, that strange, nagging doubt I couldn't shake off. My wife had been distant lately, and small things weren't adding up. Late-night texts, sudden outings, and conversations that quickly fell silent when I walked into the room. But what really caught me off guard was my mother's behavior. Instead of guiding me through these uncertain times, she seemed unusually calm, almost too supportive of my wife. It felt like they were sharing a secret, something hidden just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, why would my own mother cover up something as devastating as betrayal? But the deeper I looked, the more cracks began to show. Whispers in the hallway, guarded looks exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching. It became impossible to ignore. Every instinct told me there was more to the story than I could see. Then came the day when everything changed. A chance discovery, one I wasn't meant to make, flipped my entire world upside down. What was this secret my mother and wife were so desperate to keep hidden? And why was my mother, someone I trusted completely, willing to stand by and encourage such deception? This is the story of what I uncovered. A tangled web of lies, loyalty, and unexpected revelations. And the truth? It's something you'd never believe if I hadn't lived it myself. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to believe them. My mother had always been my strongest supporter, the person who taught me the importance of family and trust. But now, it felt like that trust was crumbling before my eyes. She and my wife, two of the people I loved most, seemed to be operating in a world I was no longer part of. The connection they shared wasn't unusual. After all, they had always been close. But lately, it felt like they were keeping me at a distance. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, but I could hear faint murmurs from the living room. As I stepped closer, I caught my mother's voice saying something in a low, urgent tone. "He doesn't need to know. Not yet." My heart raced, trying to piece together what that could possibly mean. My wife's reply was softer, almost impossible to hear, but it was clear they were both hiding something from me. I didn't confront them right then. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe I was overthinking everything, but the doubt had already taken root, and pretending it wasn't there only made things worse. Every smile felt forced, every conversation tinged with hidden meanings. I found myself watching them more closely, waiting for another slip, another clue to help me understand what was really happening. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. As days passed, the tension in the house grew thicker. My wife and mother carried on as if nothing was wrong, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was being kept from me. They shared knowing glances and whispered conversations that stopped the moment I entered the room. My mind raced with questions, each one more unsettling than the last. What secret could be so important that my own mother would help hide it from me? One afternoon, I decided to take a different approach. Maybe I wasn't supposed to confront them directly. Not yet, anyway. Instead, I started paying closer attention to the small things. Patterns in their behavior, missed details in their stories. I even checked phone logs and messages when I could, looking for anything that might explain the secrecy. But they were careful. far more careful than I expected. It was frustrating, like being handed a puzzle with missing pieces. Then, one evening, I overheard a conversation that sent chills down my spine. "It can't stay hidden forever," my wife said quietly. My mother responded, her tone stern but gentle. "Sometimes protecting someone means keeping the truth from them." I stepped back into the shadows, my heart pounding. Protecting me? From what? My thoughts spiraled, each scenario more painful than the last. Was I ready to face whatever truth they were so desperate to hide? Or was this the kind of secret better left buried? The air in the house had become suffocating. Every interaction felt laced with hidden meanings, every silence heavier than words. My mother and wife moved cautiously, like people guarding a fragile secret. But the closer I got to the truth, the harder it became for them to hide their unease. I noticed my wife growing restless, often glancing over her shoulder as if waiting for something to come crashing down. My mother, usually composed and warm, seemed distant, a shadow of the woman who had always been my rock. One night, unable to hold back any longer, I decided to press for answers. "What's going on?" I asked firmly, my voice cutting through the quiet. They exchanged a quick, uneasy look, but neither spoke. The tension was unbearable. "You've both been acting strange for weeks. I deserve to know what's happening." My mother sighed deeply, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and something else I couldn't quite place. Fear, maybe? My wife stood frozen, her expression unreadable. "It's complicated," my mother finally said. "Not everything is as it seems." Her words only fueled my frustration. "Then make it simple," I demanded. "Tell me the truth." Before either of them could respond, a sound broke the stillness, the sharp chime of my wife's phone. The message flashed briefly on the screen, but it was enough. One name stood out like a beacon in the dark, and just like that, everything began to unravel. My heart raced as I stared at the phone screen. The name glaring back at me wasn't just familiar, it was someone I never imagined would be tangled in this mess. I tried to keep my voice steady, but the tension was unbearable. "Why is this person messaging you?" I asked, my gaze locked on my wife. Her face paled, and for a moment I thought she might deny everything. But instead, she remained silent, biting her lip as if debating how much to reveal. My mother took a step forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "There's more to this than you realize," she said softly, as if trying to ease the blow of whatever truth they had hidden from me. But her words only made the situation feel heavier. The walls seemed to close in around us, thick with secrets and lies I couldn't escape. "I want the truth," I said firmly, my voice barely masking my anger and confusion. "No more excuses, no more games." The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken tension. My wife's eyes met mine, filled with guilt and something deeper: regret. The weight of the moment pressed down on all of us. Whatever they were hiding, I was moments away from uncovering it, and there would be no turning back. The tension shattered as my wife finally spoke, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she admitted. "It started as something small, something I thought would never matter." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret, but they did little to ease my growing anger and disbelief. "And you?" I turned to my mother, barely able to keep my composure. "You encouraged this? You hid it from me?" She looked down, her expression one of sorrow rather than defiance. "I thought I was protecting you," she said quietly. "I didn't realize the damage it would cause." The truth, finally laid bare, stung more than I could have imagined. My wife had confided in someone from her past, leaning on them emotionally in ways she hadn't with me. And my mother, fearing the fallout, had stepped in to shield both of us from the consequences. They believed they were sparing me pain, but instead, they built a fragile web of deception that couldn't hold. Just as I thought I had heard everything, my wife added one more thing, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something else. You need to know about that message." And suddenly, I realized the twists were far from over. The room fell silent, the weight of everything finally sinking in. My wife took a deep breath, her eyes filled with sincerity. "That message. It wasn't what you think," she said. "It was about closure, letting go of something from my past so we could move forward." Her voice cracked slightly, but I could hear the truth behind her words. She had been holding on to emotions she didn't know how to express, and instead of facing them, she had let them linger in shadows where secrets grow. My mother nodded quietly. "I thought keeping it hidden would help, but I see now that honesty would have been better for all of us." Her voice carried the weight of a lesson learned too late. Though hurt and trust took a blow, there was also a sense of relief in finally confronting everything head-on. No more whispers or hidden truths. It wasn't an easy path, but it was a necessary one.
As we sat together, the silence felt different, no longer suffocating but hopeful. Trust would take time to rebuild, but I knew we were ready to begin that journey. Sometimes it's in facing the hardest truths that real healing begins. And that's where our story truly starts.